Hello and welcome to another episode of the Real EFL Preview Show with me, your host, Gary Hutchinson. On today's show, we'll be focusing on teams vying at the top of all three EFL divisions, looking for those elusive promotions. But before we get into all of that, please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel as well if you don't already. Maybe even give the video a little share on your socials if you like what you hear. Shrewsbury Town fans, that might not be you. But of course, everyone else will like what they hear because we're packing expert opinion week after week. And there is nobody I can think of who watches more EFL action than Mr. Kyle Keneally, my partner in crime, my co-host on the show. Kyle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very, very well, thank you. I've been up since 4:45 this morning, which is about the same time that I got in on Saturday and Tuesday morning after watching non-EFL action over the weekend. I watched both England games at Wembley, which is never really worthwhile to go down and watch. But I was on BBC Breakfast this morning as part of my university course. So we got we got an email, last night about appearing on, which I think we kind of assumed would be in the background, not even in shot as such, but it didn't end up being that. We were right in shot, and I got a chance to speak, which is something I didn't perhaps expect. And it's been a very long day, obviously, as a result. But yeah, I'm doing very, very well, thank you.
Now, as I understand it, you were on BBC Breakfast to talk about some sort of general economic thing. I don't know. Something happened yesterday to do with the government. I pay no attention whatsoever. And you managed to pull it all the way back around to football and going to watch EFL games.
Yeah, somewhat related. You know, when we were speaking beforehand, I genuinely did not intend to have any reference to football because I thought, you know, it's separate. I thought I'll leave football out of this, but it was to do with the cost of living. And when he came round, he spoke to the guy who I was sat with, another university student. And he'd mentioned about the cost of living, and he's saying about rising prices, and then he just asked if I wanted to add anything else, and I mentioned travel because I obviously travel a fair bit, and which I then this wasn't on there, by the way, but I was kind of blagging for my words a little bit, and I mentioned about all the times I go and watch football. As I said, I had no intention of speaking about football because I thought it might be nice to separate it a bit from this. I didn't mention football as such on air, but yeah, I focused on the rising prices of travel, which is ironic in a way at the moment because I think I paid £5 for a single down to London on the coach from Sheffield, which is ridiculous value. It does mean that I got back at stupid times in the morning. I got back at, I think it was about 2:30 on Tuesday morning. I was in at 10. So it means I'm lacking on sleep probably for the last few days. But aside from that, I've had a very, very busy and very good week.
Brilliant. Well, one man who has had a very busy week and will certainly be taking advantage of travel, albeit one way down the south end of the country, is Mr. Gareth Ainsworth. Now, there was a bit of a shock at the beginning of the week when it was revealed that Gareth Ainsworth was set to leave Shrewsbury and go to Gillingham to take up their position, the position as manager down in Kent. Now, I've seen a lot of feedback from Shrewsbury fans on this. I've seen a lot of aspersions cast on Gareth Ainsworth on this. Why is he dropping out of League One to go into League Two? My opinion, and I will come to you in a minute, is that he has made the right choice. I think Shrewsbury fans, my utmost apologies for this. I think he's gone to a bigger club. I think he's gone to a more stable club who are probably struggling a little bit at the minute. I think he's gone to a club where he can thrive. You know, it's just outside the M25, like Wickham was. All those contacts, all that research, all the scouting that he's done in that area is now relevant. I'm not saying that, you know, Shrewsbury are out on a limb somewhere. They're not at the end of a long motorway with just to see the other side of them like Grimsby Town. They are, they're a decent club, but they're also a club in decline, rock bottom of the division. They are going down. Their ownership model is uncertain. There's a period of exclusivity that hasn't quite finished yet. So I can understand why he's made the move. I'm not just defending him because he's a Lincoln City hero. I genuinely think it's the right move, probably done in the wrong way. But what's your expert opinion, Kyle?
Yeah, I think in the wrong ways is definitely where I want to pick up on. I think obviously everything surrounding it is why there's so much outrage as such. I think you've spoken a few times about not his loyalty as such to Shrewsbury, but the fact he was preparing potentially for going down to League Two. I know when he took the job, he was hoping that he would obviously keep him in the division. They won that first game against Birmingham, which ironically, their incoming manager, his first game on Saturday is also against Birmingham, as a very weird quirk. But yeah, I just think that he's not gone about it perhaps in the right way. That there's different ways of doing it. I think the issues surrounding the takeover have played a massive part. I know that the statement Shrewsbury put up tried to not go into masses of detail on that. I think they were trying to defend themselves really. But yeah, I do think it's a decent move for him. There's massive potential there next season from them both going to be playing in the same division. Obviously, his time at Shrewsbury hasn't worked out, but I think a lot of the fans prior to this were very happy about him leading them in League Two next season. As I say, it's not quite worked out this year. They had that little bit of a brief revival, but they never really looked like staying in League One for any part of the season. So I think there was always the expectation that he would perhaps go into League Two with them, which is why I think that there is this outrage at the fact he's moved and he's dropped down a division as such. As I say, I know they're going to be playing in the same league next season, but it gives Gillingham time. I know there was a lot mentioned as well about the fact that I think Gillingham have perhaps had to pay more for him to come in now. Shrewsbury wanted to wait until the end of the season. Obviously, to try and get a replacement in mind. They have now done that already very, very quickly. I know, again, this is only till the end of the season. But yeah, I was massively surprised to see it when it came out. But I think now that I've reflected over the last few days, it does kind of make sense. As you say, I think the big thing is the way he's gone about it.
Yeah, now he has said that he was approached by Gillingham when in the summer, I think when they took Mark Bonner on, and obviously the timing wasn't quite right, and he was holding out for that. He does say that living away from home has been difficult because he lives down that area of the country, obviously with Wickham in QPR. Even though he's a Blackburn boy, he spent an awful lot of his life down in the south, so there is location to be considered as well. And I think location is something that we can mention when we come to the successor at Shrewsbury Town, albeit short term at the moment, and that's Michael Appleton. Now, Michael Appleton is from the northwest, a little bit further north than Shrewsbury, but still within very, very easy commutable distance. Again, former Lincoln City. So we know a little bit about Michael Appleton. He is a family man. He's got a young family with his wife. They were always put first in the second season, I think, and rightly so. He had his health scare, etc. Now, I think the word underwhelming may be fair in terms of the reaction at Michael Appleton going in. I will defend him after I've spoken to you. Whether you're going to defend him or not, I don't know. But what I would say is it seems very bizarre to go and give him something until the end of the season because he's got 9 games to do the absolute impossible. They may as well have given him 90 hours to raise the Titanic on his own because it ain't going to happen. So I'm not really sure what the barometer of success is for Michael Appleton at Shrewsbury between now and the end of the season.
I think he can't lose, if I'm honest, because Shrewsbury, as I've mentioned, are going down. So whatever he does, unless he loses 9 games by a ridiculous scoreline in each, which may be the case on Saturday at least, as I say, they're playing Birmingham. But yeah, it is a bizarre one. I've mentioned a few times about clubs appointing interim managers at the moment. The likes of Huddersfield have got an interim man until the end of the season, which always seemed a little bit bizarre, looking at a club that are potentially still pushing for the playoffs. But in Shrewsbury's case, that would have fitted perfectly, I felt, unless they'd have got someone in that they were looking longer term. So to appoint a manager like Michael Appleton until the end of the season does seem quite odd, unless there is a plan going forward. And if there is a plan going forward for him, then it is a very, very interesting appointment. He's had his successes in the past. He took Lincoln to the playoff final, which you can't obviously knock. Is the closest Lincoln have ever got to the championship, at least in the last sort of half a century. If you look at the squad, there's obviously a lot to say. The fact that Lincoln had your Brennan Johnson, your Morgan Rogers, all the quality players at that time. So I think people a lot look at that team and say that they had underachieved. When you also look at his job since he took over at Charlton, he only managed 28 games there. I think there was a lot said about that, and he's been out of the game for 14 months. He's had quite a few spells after he left Oxford. He was at Leicester for a little bit. I know he had a short stint as caretaker manager. And as I say, he took over at Lincoln in I don't want to say a difficult time, because Lincoln were in a very good position, but taking over from a man like Danny Cowley is almost impossible. He was never going to have the same sort of success. But as I say, he's done, arguably, in terms of league positioning at least, the best of any Lincoln manager since. I know there was obviously a lot that can be said for him, but purely in terms of league positioning, he can be considered a success at Lincoln. At least in that season, perhaps. It depends which way you look at it, to be honest. But yeah, I am really surprised by this and still quite confused, if I'm honest. I didn't see this until this morning. One of my course mates pointed it out to me. And yeah, I was very taken back by it. And Lincoln still have Shrewsbury to play, so I'll be very curious to see what family actually gets when it comes to Sinsel in a couple of weeks.
Well, the sad thing is it won't be positive, because there is a lot of dislike, I think, for that second season. And it's his personality generally is a very stoic man. You know, you don't get fist pumps, you don't get applause when you win or lose. You don't really get anything from him at all. You know, he's very closed, he's very honest in his interviews. I really like Michael Appleton, but I don't see this being the right appointment for him or Shrewsbury Town. You know, they went from Steve Cottrell, that was quite, they call it heavy metal football, to Matt Taylor, who wanted to play a little bit more football. Then they've gone via Paul Hurst to Gareth Ainsworth, who's a kind of a long ball merchant. Let's be honest, he's quite direct. To Michael Appleton, that wants to take 1,000 passes across the back four before he moves through the third. So there's absolutely no consistency whatsoever from Shrewsbury in terms of the style they want to play. Michael Appleton is going to have to try and implement, I assume, a whole new style. I can't see Michael Appleton playing the same football that Gareth Ainsworth has been doing. So for me, I think it could be the wrong appointment or the wrong move for Michael. As I understand it, I think he's been working at Manchester United of late as well. So, but it's a route back into management. And you know what? Like you say, he can't lose. If he goes in there and wins 2 matches, it's marginally a success. So yeah, we shall see. Now, let's move on to one last managerial appointment. And at this point, it would be lovely if I could put a little clip in from last week, because we talked last week about Crawley and how Crawley were struggling. They'd got rid of their manager, and I said, Scott Lindsey to go back to Crawley, and you absolutely shut me down. You closed me down like a shopping centre under a bomb scare. And what happened within 12 hours of us going live? Scott Lindsey went back to Crawley. Over to you, Kyle.
Oh, first off, what a lovely announcement time. I think they announced it about midnight. Yeah, I looked at the reaction straight away, and it was massively positive. My opinion is purely based on this. Weren't reading the room, wasn't slagging off Crawley as such, wasn't slagging off Scott Lindsey. I just didn't see him going back there, and I didn't see the success next season when they will likely be in League Two. But you can't knock it. From, as I say, from what I've read, the fan reaction has been brilliant. They've all wanted him back. He's come back at a time, as I say, that it looks highly likely that they will be playing in League Two next season. But certainly they won at the weekend. There is a minor chance. Burton are obviously the side that if anyone are going to escape at the moment, it looks like it'll be them. But Crawley have given themselves potentially 1% more of a chance with that win of the weekend. And if anyone is going to do it, if anyone's going to have success at Crawley, it will be Scott Lindsey. As I say, I know last week I said that I didn't see it working if he went back next season, but I'll certainly be watching, and I hope for all the best for him next season.
Now, I have been desperately trying to find a segue from this little section into our first championship game, and I have found one. So we have spent our time talking about 3 former imps, because Scott Lindsey was a caretaker manager at Lincoln, I believe, in the late 2011, something like that, potentially. So we go from 3 ex-imps to a club with playoff aspirations having a 4th ex-imp in their squad, Rob Dickey, and Bristol City. Oh, I nearly blotted my copybook there. So our first game, our championship game, This week is Burnley versus Bristol City. Now, the Clarets sit third in the table. They're 2 points behind Sheffield United. So the two Yorkshire teams, Leeds and Sheffield United, do have the advantage in the automatic promotion race. Whoever finishes third, and it's going to be one of those three teams because there's a 9-point difference, then has the unenviable task potentially of playing Bristol City, who are seventh, level on points with West Brom on the edge of the playoffs. So this game could be a playoff semi-final come the middle of May. Now let's turn our attention to Scott Parker's side. They are undoubtedly one of the best three sides in the division. Leeds, Burnley and Sheffield United stand head and shoulders, I think, above everybody else. They finally started scoring plenty as well, which makes them an even stronger force with their incredible defence. Does this give them the edge over Sheffield United in these final 8 matches?
I think I've said for a long time, it's that game with 3 games to go. Easter Monday, live on Sky, live on ITV, the tea time kickoff. It's going to be massive. Burnley versus Sheffield United. Every single script that you could want, I think, will build up to that. There's obviously a fair bit of football to be played before that point. But you just look at Burnley's record. They're unbeaten in 25 championship games. If that sort of record doesn't get you up, then I feel sincerely sorry for you. It reminds me very much of Sheffield Wednesday when they went half a season unbeaten, lost to Barnes. And I think it was a couple of years ago today when they lost to Forest Green, when they ended up missing out. And it's very, very similar in terms of the teams that at the top of League One in that season, how much clear of the rest they were. And as I say, it feels like it in the Championship this year as well. 2 of their last 5 games, they have scored 4 times, as you mentioned there in the title. It certainly feels like they've turned a little bit of a corner in terms of goal scoring, and their defence is still magnificent, conceding just 11 times all season. I think that kind of, it don't go under the radar as such, but I think people don't understand how ridiculous that is in a championship season. I know everything's always said about Chelsea in their season. I think when they conceded 15 in the Premier League, but to concede 11 is just ridiculous. They've already broken the record for clean sheets. I'm certain they will keep a couple more before the end of the season. And as I say, in terms of their scoring at the moment, they've scored at least 2 in 5 of their last 7 league games. They've got a big game at Coventry next weekend, even bigger perhaps than this game against Bristol City. And then, as I say, it's the game against Sheffield United that will probably decide who finishes second, that everyone is looking forward to. I think it is certainly the biggest game of the Championship. It's probably one of the biggest games at this level in recent years, just in terms of everything. It's set up perfectly, as long as both teams go into it, obviously still fighting for second spot, which I'm certain they will be.
Yeah, now we'll turn our attention to the Robins. I think the job Liam Manning has done at Bristol City has gone under the radar when you consider that they're one of the few teams in the division that have not played Premier League football. I think they're the highest placed Championship side that have not played Premier League football, and for me that's a barometer of a good manager, because all of the teams that have come down at some point have had parachute payments. There's some massive clubs above them. They're tucked in there, 7th in the division, level on points with West Brom. So just kudos to Liam Manning. Only goal difference keeps them out of the top 6. Is this the year that they finally reach the Premier League and get that hoodoo off their back of being one of the only teams in the Championship, long-serving teams in the Championship, not to have made it?
Well, that is basically where my research had come from before this. It's been 45 years since they played top-flight football, and since top-flight football has graced the southwest of England. And they spent 4 years at that level, and then they were relegated 3 times in a row, straight down to Division 4 at the time. So this persona that they have, that they are a boring mid-table Championship side, was not true over 4 decades ago. They have been a Championship side now. This is their 10th season at this level. They've finished between 8th and 19th in every single one of them years. So they've been stuck sort of in that mid-table role for a long time, it feels. But this does feel like the year that they may just break into the playoffs. They're going to have a job on their hands to do it. Coventry have obviously been in there in the last few years. You look at the team they're trying to overhaul at the moment. West Brom have obviously been in the playoffs for the last few years as well. As you say, all of these bar Coventry have been Premier League teams in very recent times. And whoever they play in the playoffs, it's likely, it's almost certain, obviously, to be one of Sunderland, Burnley or Sheffield United. So they're going to have a very, very difficult job on their hands. I always like the sort of the mechanics that go into the playoffs, when you've got a team that have been fighting for automatic promotion all season and then don't finish there, and you've got a team like Bristol City, 7 games unbeaten at the moment. They've already taken a point at Bramall Lane a couple of weeks ago. How the team who don't finish in second then go on when they reach the playoffs, and that's perhaps sometimes why you see a lot of teams who finish 4th, 5th and 6th who actually end up getting automatically promoted, because it's so heartbreaking to not get automatic promotion. You have to ready yourself again. It's all that the mental preparation of doing it, and it's so difficult to get over it. Which is why I would back whoever does finish, perhaps in 5th or 6th. Is obviously going to feel really, really harsh, as you say, that the top 3 have felt so far ahead of everyone else this season. But as I say, I think the teams who finish in the lower 3 playoff places perhaps will go and get promotion this season. And I do think that Bristol City can finish in the playoffs.
Now, I don't know why you as a Lincoln City fan would like a team coming from the middle of the table, finishing on the fringes and going through to win the playoffs, because that's exactly what happened in 2006-07 with Bristol Rovers and us. It's exactly what happened, really, when we lost to Blackpool in the playoff final after we'd been top 3, almost top 2, almost all season, top 3 almost all season, top 2. One of the teams that year that actually I think did go up, and correct me if I'm wrong, was Peterborough United, who sealed their promotion by drawing 3-3 after being 3-0 down and winning an incredibly dodgy penalty by Sammy the Cheat Smodic, as he is known in these parts. And that is where we turn our attention to in League One. Peterborough United actually are the only team that we're talking about this week who are not in playoff contention. They're 15th. They've certainly dispelled any fears of relegation, which did seem to beginning to become a reality a few weeks ago, but they've certainly turned things around and done very well. They've got a tricky trip to Reading. Now, Reading will be focusing on everything off the field, and we may get to discuss that at another time. On the pitch, the Royals remarkably still have a playoff shot. I mean, the job that Noel Hunt has done there in after picking up from Ruben Sellers has been absolutely outstanding, and everybody at Reading below the owner, the people that have kept things going, deserve absolute kudos. I've got massive respect for them. But can they overcome the odds and finish in the top 6?
Well, I was going to go into all the detail of Reading's financial situation at the moment. I'm no financial expert, but I was going to summarise it. But I don't think we perhaps have enough time to do it. So I'll purely focus on the football. Reading are 10 games unbeaten and lost for 2 months since losing to Burton at the end of January. It's just remarkable. It's draws at the moment that have slightly held them back. 6 of them, 10 games have ended level. A couple of them frustrating as well. The likes of Stevenage, Crawley, Exeter, Shrewsbury, all sides that they would perhaps hope to beat. And then yet they've gone and beaten Wrexham. They held Birmingham to a draw. Huddersfield as well. Picked up wins as well against Bolton and Rotherham. They've done really, really well. You cannot understate how well their season has gone, in all honesty. And they have Wycombe up next weekend, another game perhaps that they may be confident of getting a result in, given what I've just said about them being better against sides that are higher up in the table rather than those that are struggling. If Reading make the playoffs, I think it would be an outstanding achievement, probably one of the best we've seen in recent times. It is just remarkable what they've done. Even losing players like Sam Smith to Wrexham, it just hasn't knocked them properly. It is honestly, I can't put it into words how well they've done this season, and I would love for them to finish in the playoffs this season.
Yeah, I'd agree. They are one of the teams in the division that I've got, as I say, massive respect for. Peterborough United, I do as well, begrudgingly, not because they robbed us of our place, because to be fair, they probably didn't. That's just bitter. But because of the model that Darren McAntony has managed to instill there, and they feel like a top-end League One wannabe championship side. They're no bigger than Lincoln, no matter what they might tell you, and their ground certainly isn't fit for purpose, but we won't go there. They've ended fears of relegation this season, recording their finest win to date last weekend. Can they enjoy a positive end to their campaign, bearing in mind they also have a cup final still to play?
Yeah, I think if at the start of the season, it's a funny one really because Peterborough obviously struggled for massive parts. Their fears of relegation were very real a couple of months ago, or I think even closer. I think there was a point where they were only a couple of points above. As I say, they're purely gone now. I know they're not mathematically safe and perhaps won't be for a couple more weeks, but they are not going down this season. But yeah, I think if you'd have given most teams in the division perhaps a mid-table-ish finish in a cup final, I think quite a lot would have taken it, if I'm honest. And the way they've got there this season, I think it was always going to be a little bit of a rebuild campaign for Peterborough. If you look at the fact they've lost Kwame Poku for long spells of the season, they've obviously been really inconsistent. But to still make a final for the second successive year is massive. And the fact they've got him back now, Malik Mothersville as well, been in really good form. 6 goal contributions in his past 8 games. He's on 11 goals and 7 assists for the season. Poku is still up there as one of the best players in League One in terms of his goal output this season. So I certainly think they can enjoy a really good end to the season. And I think there's also plenty of positives to build on last season. I don't know who they're going to keep in the summer. It's Peterborough every year. We know what the model, as you've referenced, is. Pocket perhaps won't be there next season, but I'll look forward to seeing what Peterborough build next year and see whether they can challenge for the playoffs again.
Excellent. So 2 teams that will be really disappointed if they end up in the playoffs this season are Walsall and Wimbledon, and they are top versus third in League Two this weekend, and that is where we will wrap up our coverage. Now, the Saddlers are somehow still top of the division, but they've had a horrible run of form, and they face 3 grueling fixtures between now and the end of the season, or even now. I think there's a little mini test. I think it's 3 in a row. Are you backing them to get over it and win League Two, or is somebody else going to steal the title?
It could be like Bradford, who I mentioned last week. I still had faith of getting automatic promotion. You referenced my
Scott
bad
Lindsey.
prediction, so it has to go the other way. I've said for plenty of time that I have massive respect for Bradford. I really obviously love the job that Danny Cowley's done at Colchester. It's been magnificent. But I was happy to see that Bradford won at the weekend. I would love both of them to go up, if I'm honest. But yeah, I certainly see Bradford going up now. Whether it's as champions, I don't know. I've seen a lot of Walsall fans say that this is probably the 3 games that they will finally turn up in now and win and put an end to all the speculation, whether they will finally see off their bad sort of run, which they appeared to have recovered from actually last month. They had a couple of wins in a row, beating Chesterfield and Morecambe. They were heading for a 3rd straight win until Cheltenham scored twice in injury time, and they're now winless in 6 games. 4 of them have been draws, but they've had losses against Swindon and Grimsby. And as I say, their games coming up are against AFC Wimbledon, Doncaster, and Port Vale, which are the teams in 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So it is a very big time of the season for them now. If they have any aspirations of still clinging on to their automatic promotion place, which I think they're only 6 points clear of Port Vale in 4th at the moment, they have to get some results in the next few games.
Yeah, they are only 6 points clear, as you say, of Port Vale. It's a massive moment, and it almost feels like teams don't particularly want to go up in League Two. Nobody's particularly in form. I mean, even Bradford have lost 2 of the last 3, and AFC Wimbledon in their last 5 won 2, lost 2, and drawn 1. I mean, there's the team in the best form were Colchester, just to defend my pick. They've obviously won 4 of the last 5, so it's still the informed team in the top 7 or 8. But Wimbledon, they remain in 3rd spot. They had a favourable midweek result from Barrow, who beat Port Vale, so that prevented Port Vale from climbing into the top 3. Once again, teams not wanting to go up in League Two. Can they use a game that happened elsewhere that didn't involve them as the lift they need to secure automatic promotion and a return to League One after a couple of seasons?
Well, Barrow appeared to be having their own mini input in the automatic promotion race. They drew against AFC Wimbledon at the weekend. That game in midweek was obviously massive. There was some interesting stuff on social media after the game. Port Vale in the past have given it out. I think to a lot of teams, they've obviously had to take it in midweek. They hit the woodwork 4 times, which I know was referenced quite a few times by their fans. Also, Paul Farman in goal. I've seen a lot said about his performance in midweek as well. Just looking then very quickly at AFC Wimbledon, they edged past Carlisle the weekend prior, who are obviously going to be relegated from League Two. They were defeated by Cheltenham. Again, another side that seems to be having an input in the automatic promotion race. Weirdly, their only win sort of in the last few games came against Notts County, one of the sides also challenging for automatic promotion after they lost against Morecambe and Bromley. And this was all after they come through February on a pretty decent run. There were three wins in that time. There were 6 games unbeaten. They conceded just once, which I think was against Colchester, in a 1-1 draw at the end of the month. Their loss though against Bromley at the start of March was their first since losing to Chesterfield back on the 21st of December. So they were in good form. But like every team in League Two at the moment who are looking for automatic promotion, they seem to want to throw it away. So I'll be intrigued. This is certainly the division to look at in terms of all the clubs that are fighting at the moment for automatic promotion. And I cannot wait to see how the final few weeks of the season pan out.
One thing just there, we touched on Barrow. I love XG. And there's a brilliant little XG table, and it tells you where teams should be if games were won and lost on XG and not on goals. And Barrow would be top 7 on XG. But Walsall would be first and Wimbledon would be third. So they are bang on where they should be, which makes this a fascinating encounter. Kyle, thank you very much for your input. I'll let you go away and enjoy your celebrity status around campus, having been on BBC News, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks.
Oh, cut Kyle off there. Oh, well, can't be helped. So that's it. Another real EFL preview show done and dusted. We've touched on all those managerial changes and those huge matches at the top of all of the divisions. There's still plenty to play for, unless, of course, you support Lincoln City, and then the season's going to peter out. Some might argue that that's a good thing, particularly fans of Carlisle United and Shrewsbury. So we're going to end now, just like their spells in their respective divisions are probably going to end in a couple of weeks' time. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you do enjoy the content, share it far and wide. As I said, we'll be back next week. I'll be here asking the questions. Kyle will be answering them. But in the meantime, we'll see you soon.